Welcome back to another video of Better FAQ. This is going to be a quick one. It's something that we have to advise on frequently, and I understand why it comes up, but it's a very important thing to clarify. It deals with giving out equity in your company. The thing that we see a lot is that people will find an interested investor, third party, outside person that wants to give money to their company. All they want to receive in return is ownership in that company so that when the company does well, they make some money. Or if the company gets sold or goes public, they make some money. Now, that's totally normal. That happens a lot. We help clients have investors all the time. The important thing, however, is that you can't just shake that person's hand and take their money and say, cool, we're good. You'll get 5% if we ever sell the company. That is actually illegal. Flat out. I don't say this often in my work, but that is illegal. There are a lot of complex and nuanced laws that underlie any type of ownership and equity conversation, and anytime you give out ownership in a company. I won't get too deep into it, but the reasoning there is that it is speculative at best. You don't know how well the company is going to do. Those people stand to lose their money and not get anything back. And so the law basically has stepped in to be pretty paternalistic and say, we want to make sure that people either understand what they're getting into, or we protect them against situations where they're going to lose their money if they are not savvy enough or sophisticated enough or wealthy enough to be able to lose that money. And so what ends up happening with any type of ownership conversation, and when you're giving out equity, the law calls it securities, what ends up happening is, depending on who that person is, how they know you, how much money your company makes, what your company does, how many times that person has invested before, how much money they have. I might have already said that one, but you can get the idea here. These factors go on. The list is long, and those factors ultimately dictate which laws we have to comply with under what's called the securities law. You've heard of the SEC. It's the Securities Exchange Commission, and they govern the exchange of securities. And so they dictate what laws have to be followed and what compliance has to be done, meaning what paperwork has to be done, depending on all of those factors that I started to lay out, and there's many more. So the important thing is, I see it all the time where people send an email and say, yeah, we'll give you this and we'll take your money. And then they take that money, it's in the bank, they shook hands, they think it's good. That can get you in a lot of hot water. And securities law is actually one of the few areas of the law with businesses and with doing business that actually can have criminal penalties, meaning fines, jail time actually, very serious things. And so you have to be very careful not to promise certain types of ownership, especially if you're promising ownership in the future. That then also triggers ERISA, which is the Employment and Retirement Act in the US that governs basically retirement accounts and how people get retirement money and things like that. And when you're starting to trigger the SEC and ERISA and these different types of laws, additionally, there's anti-fraud laws. That's kind of where the criminal stuff comes in. All of these start to kind of pile on top of each other. And so it gets very difficult to make sure that you're complying with everything. And the more sort of fast and loose you play it with, yeah, we'll take your money, we'll give you ownership, the harder it becomes to actually comply with all those rules, because you can't really go back and undo things with these rules. If you've advertised online, then a whole bunch of the rules are out the window, and the more difficult ones are the only ones available, just as an example. And so again, very, very important. If you've seen our website for my law firm, we actually have an iceberg on the website, and it's not meant to be like scary Titanic, you're going down, but it is meant to illustrate that above the water is the handshake and, accepting the check for the money. Below the water is all of this compliance that I'm talking about. And we just really do this, and we make these videos and we talk about these things and we advise our clients because we don't want to see you get in trouble. We don't love the laws. Let me just be honest there. All of these laws are cumbersome and they're very difficult for smaller businesses to comply with because of the expense of it, the volume of paperwork, and how it kind of holds up the process and sometimes cools the jets on the investors. But let me say, it is much more important to do these things right and stay out of trouble than to get the money in quick and then get in trouble later. Partly because if you get in trouble under the SEC, under these rules I'm talking about, you are then labeled by the law as a bad actor and you can't raise money in the future. So there are implications that are pretty far ranging when it comes to this type of stuff. And again, it can have very serious implications and penalties. So hopefully this is helpful, not meant to scare you. We can navigate all of it. We can put all the paperwork in place. We just have to start on the front end through the conversations with the investors to make sure that we get the right paperwork in place for who they are and what you're doing. And then you're good. Might be a little bit expensive, but ask the investor, throw a little bit more money on, cover the legal costs. That's pretty normal. Seasoned investors will understand that. Hope this was helpful. Thanks for tuning in.